Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I just want to say that I'm truly thankful for the opportunity to be able to come and speak with you all on today. As she said, my name is Tabitha Cole, and I was granted the opportunity to be able to get into the documentary that was gave by the Truth Campaign. I spoke my opinion about how big tobacco targets the low-income communities, as everybody was speaking about earlier, and also they target those who are struggling to make those ends meet. And big tobacco companies, they have industry documents that reveal in the past how they targeted and profiled low-income communities. And they said that low-income communities, they have people that have low self-esteem. They said that they have nothing to look forward to. And they said they overall have a pessimistic outlook on life. And I knew that wasn't true. You know, I came from a rural area, you know, with low-income people, but I saw my family going to work every day, working hard to make things happen for us. So, you know, that really affected me. And I was smoking. I went in November, and I was smoking cigarettes then. And we done that in November, and it aired in January, doing a little bit after the Grammys this year. And I would like to add in, January the 17th, I smoked my last cigarette as of now. I haven't smoked since then. And you know, it's truly a blessing, and you know, my daughter's got something to do with that. Mama, that stuff stank, you know, you gotta let it go. I say, you know, I'm gonna do my best, and it's just a mind thing. So it really, once I heard what they were saying, when I went up there to do that commercial, it really dawned on me then too. I gotta let this go, because I'm not gonna go through life like this. You know, I don't wanna be targeted like that, so had to make a change. And also, what they done, they capitalized on these low-income communities. And I know our communities are worth more than that. Our families are worth more than that, and we deserve better. So here's my feature in the Truth Campaign commercial.
How far does big tobacco go to keep people hooked on their deadly, addictive products?
Big tobacco designed cigarettes to be more addictive by genetically engineering the tobacco itself.
And it's ravaging struggling America. A staggering 72% of remaining smokers come from lower-income communities.
You really see the hold it takes on people.
The whole situation is wrong.
Stopping big tobacco starts with the truth. Know the truth, spread the truth. Enlist at thetruth.com.
All right, and they captured that clip. And one of my opinions, I say, hey, that whole situation is wrong, you know, and they captured me saying that. And I mean, it's really been life-changing, you know, ever since then. And in my community, I'm also a musician. It's included in my biography. I've been a musician in my church for 13 years, deal with the youth in my community, and a lot of older adults. And I'm an insurance agent for Family Heritage Life, where we offer cancer protection, heart attack, and stroke. That pays you money directly, not the doctors. So I go out into my community and I speak about that, and just out advocating and just encouraging people to let the tobacco go as well, because like I say, this has been life-changing for me. And also have another documentary to present. We have a short film that's investigating the tobacco industry's successful infiltration into the Black communities, and it's called Black Lives, Black Lungs. And here this go next.
3 years ago, I accepted an internship with Truth Initiative. At the time, I thought I knew everything I needed to know about tobacco. Yes, it could be deadly, but my generation was rejecting it in much larger numbers. But what I knew was just the beginning. Today, tobacco-related diseases are still the #1 cause of death in the African American community, and that's not a coincidence. During my time with Truth Initiative, I read dozens of research articles and stacks of internal documents directly from tobacco industry files. I learned that the tobacco industry strategically and successfully infiltrated my community. And while it's true that they targeted many groups, the targeting of the Black community has been uniquely damaging.
Critics charge that the tobacco companies view Black smokers as a growing source of income. In fact, they say, Blacks are the target of carefully plotted and highly specific marketing campaigns.
For decades, the tobacco companies have used predatory practices aimed to push their deadly product onto the Black community. Practices that contribute to the approximately 45,000 Black people who will die every year from tobacco-related diseases. This film, Black Lives, Black Lungs, is part of my effort to turn my anger into action. I've set out to give voice to some of the experts and activists who've spent their lives taking on the tobacco industry. Because understanding the history of this 50-year-plus campaign is critical for taking back the health of our community.
In high school, I became involved in tobacco control because my uncle passed away from tobacco-related diseases, and I remember him telling me when I was younger that when he first started, it was because the industry told him it would cure his asthma. And if you were to hear that statement today, you would think that's the most ludicrous thing you've ever heard. And I just felt like it was so unfair for an industry to be able to target someone like my uncle and have him die as a result. If he had known the real health effects from the get-go, he would have never picked it up. I lost my uncle to an industry who does not care about him, who does not care about the Black body. And I feel I have a responsibility to speak out against it.
Addiction is about brain chemistry, and it's about access. It's not about personal weakness. It's not about poor Black people just are going to do something anyway. It's about that you give this entity access to the brains of your children, of your people, and they become addicted.
There's nothing inherently Black about menthol cigarettes. They were invented in 1925 by Lloyd Spud Hughes. Spud created his own brand, Spud brand, which were the first widely sold menthol cigarettes in the United States. In 1932, Brown & Williamson Tobacco launched its own menthol brand, Cool. And in 1956, industry behemoth R.J. Reynolds introduced Salem, the first menthol cigarette with a filter tip. R.J. Reynolds marketed Salem as fresher, cool, and refreshing. Of course, all without any scientific proof.
Salem's special paper breathes in fresh air with every puff.
The death rates for African Americans who smoke hover around 49,000 per year. It's no accident that African Americans smoke more menthol cigarettes.
One of the greatest marketing coups that took place in the 20th century is transforming menthol cigarette to the Black cigarette. The African Americanization of menthol cigarettes in the United States starts with finding a specialty product for African Americans following World War II. Many African Americans had moved to the North. There were specialty products being developed for them, certain hair creams, certain foodstuffs, and the tobacco industry, particularly some of them, began to realize we could market a particular brand to this group of people. Brown & Williamson conducted a number of focus groups in the late 50s and early 60s that identified that African Americans were more receptive to TV commercials, more receptive to the messages that are provided there. Brown & Williamson then took 90% of their budget and put it into television advertising because they knew African Americans would disproportionately look at that. They began to use Black images on television and in their ads. In 1953, 5% of African Americans used menthol products compared to 3% for whites. By 1968, that had tripled to 14%. By 1976, it had tripled again to over 42%. Into the 2000s, we're above 80%. That's the African Americanization of menthol cigarettes in the United States. It's the targeted marketing over a half a century toward Black folks.
Let's dig in a little bit deeper and talk about how African Americans are disproportionately burdened by death and disease from tobacco, cigars, and cigarillos. When it comes to understanding it as a public health issue, I didn't know about that, or a social justice issue in particular, until I started working with TRDRP and Truth Initiative. I didn't understand that the industry had been targeting my community.
In the middle of Jim Crow. There's a civil rights battle going on, and the tobacco industry is way past that. They've got Elston Howard, catcher from the New York Yankees, Black man selling Cool cigarettes. They have executives in their offices in North Carolina that they're promoting while Black folks can't even get a job or sit at a lunch counter. So they're way ahead of the curve.
In 1971, the Public Health Cigarette Smoking Act banned the advertising of cigarettes on TV and radio.
The tobacco industry was one of the first industries to recognize not all marketing needs to go toward white males. So it was good to see Black people in the ads and to see that there were Black models and that it wasn't all drugs and gangs. And so it was hard. People saw that and they were very much attracted to that.
For decades, the tobacco industry has infiltrated the black community, infiltrated black institutions. In return, what the black community got was death and disease.
We know the facts. We have the scientific knowledge that tells us that we die in larger numbers. If people stopped smoking, if people resisted using these products, it's a preventable disease. We wouldn't have to die in such large numbers.
Why do some things still happen in society that we know are wrong? It's all tied to money. Why is the tobacco industry able to sell a product that will definitely, undoubtedly kill you? Because there's money tied to it. And money makes things happen.
I found myself very touched and even upset over what I was seeing, because I saw lists of organizations that included organizations that I grew up in, organizations that I was currently a member of, and I had no idea that behind the scenes there were negotiations between the leaders of these organizations and tobacco companies where they were accepting money and sponsorships.
So in the summer of 1984, I was in my preventive medicine residency at Johns Hopkins. I was doing internships around the country. And so one of the organizations I did an internship was with the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. While I was there, I was very concerned about the relationship between the CBCF and the tobacco industry. So I started talking to other interns who were there, and then also my supervisors, to sort of see, what can be done. Is it possible to do something from the inside? Because I knew that the effect that it was having on African Americans in general. And so what they suggested was that I write a memo to the executive director. So the memorandum reads, I am very much disturbed by the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's policy of promoting cigarette smoking. I am especially disturbed at the free distribution of cigarettes at CBCF functions. I am requesting that you raise these issues at the CBCF Policy Board in the hope that we will adopt a policy more in line with our interest in the well-being of Black Americans. And that's how it begins.
Unfortunately, somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% of all African American civil, religious, political, social organizations take money from the tobacco industry. That's just because we ain't got no money. They're buying, they're buying the silence of these people. The Congressional Black Caucus is a multi-million-dollar foundation, and last time I looked, at least half of their members take money from the tobacco industry. Now, not all of them do, and we tried to work, of course, with the ones that don't, like Karen Bass from Los Angeles and Barbara Lee from up here, Alma Adams in North Carolina. But it's a hard sell, and it's still a hard push to get groups to speak up against the tobacco industry.
The tobacco industry has a very interesting and highly complex relationship with African Americans. Yes, the tobacco industry was the first, or among the first industries to give African Americans high-level executive jobs. They fund several Black scholarships, including the Thurgood Marshall Fund. They funded major civil rights organizations, including the NAACP, the National Urban League, the Congress for Racial Equality, and much more. They did give people in the entertainment industry their first leg up. But you can give me everything in the world, but at the end of the day, what is this industry doing? 47,000 African Americans a year die as a result of tobacco-related diseases. That is the leading cause of death in the African American community. There's not enough shiny trinkets in the world that you can give me in exchange for my life. There's not enough shiny trinkets in the world that you could give me in exchange for my brother's life, for my sister's life. It doesn't matter how much money you pump into the community, we are worth so much more. In my experience, people have been shocked to learn that, they fund so much, that their dollars reach so far. But I think that it needs to be known.
I'm sitting at my desk one day in 1998 when the Surgeon General's report comes out, first report on racial and ethnic minorities and smoking, and it just kind of slapped me in the face that African Americans were dying disproportionately of tobacco-related diseases across the board.
I was actually one of the first to start looking at what the industry had written in their own words about their plans to market their products to African American communities and looking at their relationship building with African American organizations and organizations that I was currently a member of, and I had no idea that behind the scenes there were negotiations between the leaders of these organizations and tobacco companies where they were accepting money and sponsorships. Tobacco-related diseases was really, I saw, a main cause for the health disparities that were affecting my community. I couldn't turn my back on this. I just couldn't. And one of my colleagues actually saw me crying at my desk at UC San Francisco because I was just so upset over what I was seeing, and she asked a question, I wonder if others in your community would have this kind of reaction to these documents. We then got funding to do another project where we took the documents to groups of African American smokers and young people, elderly people in the community to find out if they would have a similar reaction. And it was very clear that this was information that they didn't have, that they wanted it, that they wished that they had had prior to them picking up a cigarette.
I work with the group, the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council. Our tagline is Saving Black Lives, and that at bottom it is a social justice question. You might look at it this way: when you have the tobacco industry targeting of African Americans, disproportionately advertising in our communities, giving away free samples, menthol products are less expensive in the African American community. It's a classic definition of a social justice issue where there is a major player taking advantage of a lesser person. Now, there has been some changes. The National NAACP passed a resolution at their July convention saying that chapters could support local and state resolutions to curb or regulate menthol. This is a major breakthrough.
You know, the legislation I'm signing today represents change that's been decades in the making. Today, thanks to the work of Democrats and Republicans, healthcare and consumer advocates, the decades-long effort to protect our children from the harmful effects of tobacco has emerged victorious. Today, change has come.
It's always been an uphill battle. Look at the black folks who fought to set up the Underground Railroad. Look at the black folks who fought Jim Crow. If we're going to fight this, then you're in it for the long haul.
Our communities are under great stress, so we need healthier lifestyles, but we don't need people dumping this poison in our neighborhoods.
If you know someone who smokes, who's black, they probably smoke menthol cigarettes. Tell their story.
I think when it comes to just living as an African American, understanding that just because of who we are, our lives are constantly at threat, whether it is racial injustice, police brutality, being denied access to things. All of these issues are layered and connected.
I made a decision at 18 that I was going to fight back, and I am 67. I continue that fight.
Black Lives Matter, hands up, don't shoot. I can't breathe. I think we're all answering the same question. What is the worth of a black body in the United States of America?
And you all just got the facts off of that video as well. So let's continue, everybody here, to be advocates in our community to get everybody to stop smoking these tobacco products, and we can stop these tobacco-related illnesses that are taking our people out. And also, I wanna say thank you to Ms. Cynthia Johnson that allowed me also that opportunity. They got the referral and called me up to do that youth campaign commercial. And Ms. Olita Smith, that's my business partner and family here. Just want to say thank you for coming out to Way from El Dorado to support this event here. Thank you all.
We thank Ms. Cole for her presentation today and for her participation in the Truth commercial, because it was a request from me to Ms. Johnson to find somebody. Hurry up and find somebody. And so because we didn't want to miss the opportunity, so we hope that when the full documentary is finished, we'll be able to view it and show it here, possibly or at another event. So this is presented to Ms. Tabitha Cole in appreciation for your presentation here today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.